Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. Sure enough, at noon I crashed. Oh man. Finally got caught up on the news from yesterday. And sure enough, it's a doozy. More than what I learned at midnight. And that was just the Confederate flag thing here in Utah. There's more, and I need to tell you guys that even though I'm an LDS critic, I don't joy in it. I don't joy in finding out that the religion that I was born and raised into is the evil empire religion. Literally. It pisses me off. So please understand that when I talk about how Utah are Confederates, Nazis, KKK, white supremacists, Scottish rights, Illuminati, it's not something I go, haha, you guys are Illuminati. No. It's you mother beepers. I was raised to believe that I was in the true church, that I was a part of a religion that was going to save America in Armageddon. And so here it is, America is being destroyed by a president who wants us to drink bleach, and my church closed. And they're trying to have me killed. So understand this in context. Alright. Now again, I don't like being right. But as I'm reporting my comments on ABC4 News Utah, which has been the only Utah news source to post the most daily videos on YouTube. And I don't bother with watching TV anymore. It's MSNBC is all I watch, but under coronavirus, it's just a repeating throughout the day. I'm impressed with Nicole Wallace, because she was Republican under Bush, which is why I don't like her. But under Trump, she said, oh hell no, this ain't my Republicans, and left the Republican Party. Because she has boys of her own that she does not want to be like Trump. And so she presents a unique viewpoint, a motherly viewpoint, with that perspective in mind. And so even though she still praises Bush, she at least understands the danger of Trump. And so I can trust her reporting on Trump. But the reason why I went to MSNBC in the first place was I found Rachel Maddow. She's by far the best in covering Trump and all the scandals that's going on. And this ABC4 News Utah, they don't get into it, but they present things that I'm able to use Rachel's tactics to uncover what's going on, and sure enough, eventually I'm found right. And it pisses me off. So apparently, the wheelchair guy still is allowed to get on and off the bus, despite the rest of us having to use the back doors. The first video, that was 17 hours ago, is the private sector testing. This is what I was trying to find out, but no news source was informing me of what was really going on, with why Utah's testing is so inaccurate, and why Herbert gets caught with an order for $800,000 for the hydrochloroquine pill. They finally dumped it on Friday night. Private sector testing. The state of Utah, like every other state in the union, was denied testing kits from our federal government because they're purposely trying to murder us. And so Herbert, his way of dealing with it was to hire private companies to do the testing. And this one particular private sector tester company, I can't remember the name of it, you can go to the site, listen to it, you can get the company name for yourself. They're the ones that said, oh, the president said this, we're going to test. And so Herbert bought the 800,000K. That's, yeah, 800, I had it right the first time. I'm still trying to wake up. Oh, man. And this private sector company, like I was saying, Herbert is specifically holding back the numbers. And that's for the upcoming one here that I'm going to get to. I also have a video plan, just in case you were wondering. What does President Russell M. Nelson know, and when did he first know about it? And the answer is going to scare you. And so the testing was purposely throttled. This private company wants to do the testing, and it's, Herbert is limited on his testing, but this private testing is not being reported with the state's testing. And the outbreaks have been confirmed. They were not being put in with the private sector testing either, and they weren't being put in with outbreak testing as well. Purposely putting us at what I'm going to talk about soon, that the state is at a moderate risk phase because of the testing that has been performed, not what should have been done and what the real numbers are. And so we are opening up under false pretenses, purposely under false pretenses. We're being lied to in Utah by Governor Mormon Herbert. All right, I talked about the Salt Lake City mayor's response with the other video with the conservative or the Confederate flag mask at Walmart's. Daybell, NBC.com. So NBC last night, Dateline, had an article or a segment or whatever you call the show on Daybell and her missing kids. So go to it. When you go online, you have to understand you need to have your pop-up blockers off so that they can advertise to you. Not happy with it. Others don't require it. Just NBC. But yeah. So I guess it was an hour and a half video or presentation. And this is national news. Dateline is national. It's not local. But she's Mormon. She considered herself a Mormon goddess. It's suspected she had murdered her sister at an earlier time period. And she's suspected as having murdered her husband, ordering a hit on him by her brother, I think. Or some family member. I think it was her brother. And her new husband, Chad Daybell, she's Lori Vallow. Chad Daybell, Mormon from Rexburg, Idaho, has a near-death experience, and because of his near-death experience, has a view on Mormonism about the afterlife that the church is uncomfortable with. But Daybell enforces his beliefs with murder. So if you're unfamiliar with your Book of Mormon, there's antichrists who are practicing priestcraft, who enforce priestcraft with murder. Chad Daybell to a T. He's preaching his new doctrine based on his near-death experience, getting paid for it with the publication of books, and enforcing it with the murder of his wife. But he murdered his wife in connection with Lori Vallow murdering her husband. Let's murder our spouses and then we can be together forever, as the end of the world is here. And so she thinks she's a goddess to bring about Armageddon and the coming of their version of Jesus Christ. And their kids, it's suspected she murdered them too. A whole wake of death follows this woman, as she has likely murdered her kid and his kid in their joint marriage. Because, as she had been found out to have said, they're acting like zombies. And she's had further correspondence where she talks about zombie apocalypse type stuff and the need to murder. So that's a... God damn. What is wrong with you Mormons? Alright, so here's the state enters moderate risk phase. And again, like I said, it's because of the fraudulent testing and incomplete and inaccurate testing that's going on. They are not reporting everything. They finally, as I'm going to get to that too, where'd it go? Was it way down here? Nope, there it is. Multiple COVID-19 cases at Gale Miller Resource Center. That is not the one I was reporting earlier. This is a different homeless shelter. But they finally revealed it last night that the Gale Miller Resource Center has been hit with an outbreak of coronavirus. They did not report the men's shelter, of which my ex gave me exclusive insight into. She lives by it, and they know what's going on there. And it's the men's shelter that she was referring to, specifically, because she's right there. And so she sees the men who come in and come out. And they're not reporting that one. But as you can see, assisted living facilities, as they did report about one outbreak in an assisted living facility earlier this week, and now on the Friday night they reveal Gale Miller homeless shelter. These are the new three among the three homeless shelters, and two of the three of them have an outbreak of coronavirus. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the year, I was reporting that these homeless shelters were banding together, extorting the state of Utah for $3.5 million, or they were shutting down. They purposely destroyed the original homeless shelter and then decided, oh, okay, people aren't happy with us. We'll make 3 homeless shelters then, and we'll provide 400 less beds. And then over the winter time, as they had them built finally, they then had the cops arresting the homeless for being on the streets and dumping them off at these homeless shelters, which were all full. Because remember, 400 beds less does not mean that there's space available. And they were turning it into Nazi concentration camps. They tried doing it with the older version when they first shut it down. Homeless got special identification, similar to being arrested in jail when you're booked. They were treating them as prisoners. They were ID'd, labeled, and controlled. And everybody was just turning a blind eye. We know them by their fruit. And the fruit is pure evil. Confederate, white supremacist, Nazi, KKK, Scottish Rites, Illuminati, whichever form of infiltration you want to call it, that's what it is. That's the fruit. It is not the fruit of love, joy, peace, happiness, long-suffering, temperance, meekness, brotherly kindness, etc. Whatever that Galatians 5, 20 to 22, somewhere around there, talks about the fruits of the Spirit. There is no fruit of the Spirit in what goes on here in Mormon Utah. It is the spirit of hatred, the spirit of anger, the spirit of evil. And Galatians doesn't even talk about that. It talks about the natural fruits, natural man fruits versus spirit fruits. This is a different fruit altogether. And so understand that there is many more cases. We are not moderate risk. We're at high risk. We were not supposed to open, but they purposely altered the numbers so that they would open, so that they would appease Trump, so that they would protect and defend President Russell M. Nelson. And again, I'm going to get to that video after this one about what he knows and when did he first know about it, and holding his fast to cure coronavirus as a medical doctor. Okay, so again, Friday night, foster care in Utah fired. No more foster care. Yeah. So all the kids who've been stripped from their parents because of what the fascist Utah does, purposely causing the condition to take away kids from their parents, now has shut down the foster care program. They're no longer giving the grant to the foster care company that has been running it this whole time. And they themselves are talking about how they worked hard to try to get a good image, to maintain their yearly grants or however long the grants are for. And guess what they gave it to? Adoption agency organization. Now, if you remember, not too long ago, like the end of last year, I think it was the end of last year, unless time is really flying by, there was that Mormon from Arizona who served a mission out in the Philippine Islands. I can't remember, Manila, or not Manila, not Malaysia, I don't think, but somewhere out there, an M country, and came back from his mission, but maintained connections as he was human trafficking the people from his mission into the United States, into Arizona, and into Utah, and into one other state. I think it might have been Idaho. It's been so long, as we've had other news since. But I remember, because one of the homes, the human trafficking prisons, was right here in West Valley City, where I am. That's why it caught my attention. Not just that it's a Mormon involved as well. And the reason why he was able to escalate his business was because not too many years back, the church stopped their adoption agency because of the scandals that were emerging. This is the pattern of behavior of the church. They have scandals for one of their companies, they pack up and flee, and let the mess fester like bacteria that's uncleaned on your kitchen counter. And just like the Boy Scouts, they caused the rapes of the boys and the Boy Scouts, and now they're gone. Right in time for the Boy Scouts to be left with the lawsuits, as they had to declare bankruptcy because the church pulled out their funding. Well, I guess that means that the church is good, huh? But yeah, they did it with adoption agencies too, because of human trafficking reports. So this other Mormon, not from Utah, is able to grow his business because of the vacuum left behind by the church. And so human trafficking of the people from his mission. Oh yes, I love people from my mission so much. BS. And I want to say the full word, but I'm trying to contain myself despite And so, as a result, he just got busted, and his human trafficking ring stopped. It got exposed. But the news was not connecting him to being Mormon and with the church and all that process. Again, this is why I watch a number of different shows or news sources to try to figure out what's really going on in the world, because one news source does not do it right. Rachel, like I said, is the best, but she only covers the Trump scandals. Getting her to talk about local stuff here in Utah ain't gonna happen. So I have to keep searching around different news sources to try to investigate myself, because I can't trust the one source media alone. And so, yeah, now after the scandal from adoption agencies, foster care in Utah fired, and an adoption agency is taking its place. A human trafficking organization, because they are a private company like the people doing our testing, and so they rely on numbers to get paid. Just like mental health in Utah, it's a private companies, and so they need clients in order to get paid. You cannot rely on people who take care of humans, whether foster, adoption, mental health, prison. That's been discussed in Utah. Let's just privatize the prisons. Hell no. You get falsely arrested for speaking out against the church, you're never seen again. That's what's going to happen under privatized prisons. That's why Utah wanted it. But yeah, you cannot trust organizations involving human care if they're private companies, because they have to have clients regularly flowing through. And if there is no need for their services, do they just say, oh, okay, we'll just close our business, we'll try to find some other line of work? No! They lie and cheat and human traffic in order to have a secure paycheck. That's why you can't trust mental health care, foster care, adoption agencies, and prisons and jails, or any other care of human life when they rely on clientele for their money. And so this should scare everyone, because foster care is different than adoption agencies. Adoption agencies, you fill out the forms, you get approved or you don't get approved, you get a kid, that's it. You're on your own. Foster care keeps in contact to foster the relationship with the parents or the guardians and the kids. They follow up. Adoption agencies don't. And so that's why this is a big story, is because now they're showing their true colors here in Utah, that they don't care about the kids that they have caused to have separated from their parents in the first place. This is what I was warning you guys about. Is that with adoption agencies, it fosters this white supremacist fascist ideology that they hate the poor, but they cause poverty so that they can hate them. And when you have the white supremacist men who are allowed to rape women, leaving them in a decision of, do you give up your baby so that you can have a life, or do you keep your baby but suffer financial ruin for the rest of your life? As women who get raped have their rights to life, liberty, and property all violated. That's why Biden's latest allegation of being a pussy grabber is so serious. But did it really happen? And Chris Hayes handled that with his response to the hashtag Fire Chris Hayes movement. But we didn't learn from the Me Too movement. That was clear. Because Chris Hayes' viewers are Democrat loyalists. So we did not learn from Me Too. And yeah, it was ruined when false allegations started coming up, and people's lives were ruined with false allegations. There are guys who got let go because they were found to have been innocent, but their lives are over because of the scandal. And I still see people attributing the Me Too movement to them being guilty, and they weren't. They were innocent. And TV shows were canceled despite their innocence. So that was the danger of the Me Too movement. We did not learn from it at all. But that's the purpose, by the white supremacist agenda. They caused the controversy to ruin it specifically. And so when women are now faced with, how do I survive with a baby that I want to keep, because the Mormon church now thinks that I'm evil, because BYU had that policy that rape victims are also guilty. And BYU was forced to make the change because of the protests that the kids had down there. And so these are all tied in together into that mindset I was talking about in the midnight video about the Walmart Confederate. Oh, great, the wind's blowing in the smoking. And so this human trafficking concept is what adoption agencies use. They separate families, which they cause to separate. But I saw it in my own life. That's why I have 2 divorces in my belt now. It's because of the church, the mindset of Mormonism. My kids were stripped from me because I was a translator, and the Mormons attacked me for it. My wife, the first woman formerly called my wife, specifically said, as she was taking the kids away, my kids will not learn Hebrew. Oh? And that's why my parents helped. That's why my parents abused me. But that's the origin of it, is the thinking process that is just evil. But it gets worse because it involves human trafficking. So the women are pressured into giving up their babies. They can't have abortions because that's murder in the Mormon church. And so what is masturbation then? Oh, that's a sin too, right? If you're a woman, you don't understand. And so the best that you can relate to us guys is your monthly menstrual cycle. But be grateful yours is just once a month. Not once an hour. And not menstrual. But they purposely rip the babies out, put them up into good Mormon homes, just like Christians do with their separation of families. Putting them into good Christian homes, which means a slave home. The kid is an unworthy baby, a heathen baby, being adopted by a good Christian or Mormon home. The baby is then raised up to give loyalty to their guardians, their masters. We rescued you. We gave you a home. We gave you food. We gave you clothing. We gave you all the basic necessities. We gave you the opportunity your wicked mother didn't. You see what's going on? This is part of the human trafficking psyche. This is the same psyche that's used in pedophile cases, getting girls sexually trafficked from school. This is the same thing where gangs recruit their young boys into the gang. Oh, the government's not going to take care of you. We'll take care of you. Be a part of our family. And then you got to give loyalty. You cannot stab them in the back. And you don't get the real opportunity unless you conform and comply. If you resist and say, hey, I don't want to be a slave, I don't want to be beholden to you, you are taking advantage of me, then, oh, wow. They dump you back into the system, or you get disowned and shunned and you're ruined for life. And so in my case, born into white supremacist parents, they thought that because I was their child that they had control over my life because of this mentality in Mormonism. And so I was not free to choose any career I wanted, though they didn't tell me that I was supposed to conform to what they wanted me to do. They let me make my mistakes so that I would suffer, rather than helping me with the career path that I chose. See the difference? If a kid wants to be an artist, foster his artistic talents. Inform him of the reality of the economic system in the world, but not as my dad did. Don't put too much time and energy into baseball, he said, because only 1% of those who make it to the tryouts get recruited anyway. And you won't ever make it. Don't ever tell your kid they aren't going to make it. Let them know of the reality, but let them know that it requires a certain amount of work, and that they have to be ready for another life if the one that they want doesn't financially work out. But that's the economy that we're living in. The law of consecration that I'm talking about is a completely different situation. Any field you want to go into, you can go into. You will be provided with the education, the training, the experience. You will be helped and assisted for mass production. But that's a different story. But understand that this adoption agency is far more insidious than people understand. Because I was born and raised Mormon, I know all about it. And I wasn't adopted. I was a literal born child. And I'm still getting treated in the same exact manner. I'm considered the black sheep of the family. I've been shunned and disowned by my family. All because I found Joseph Smith was actually a translator. Not this rock looker, as everyone has claimed he is. But yeah, he didn't translate the Book of Mormon. It wasn't a translatable book. It was plagiarized, specifically written in code, as I've been telling you guys. And the Joseph Smith translation, that was Sidney Rigdon. He wanted to revise the Bible. That's why he left the Campbellites. Is because Pastor Campbell, or whatever they use for the term, Alexander Campbell, I think is his first name, argued with Rigdon, saying, no, I only want to redo the New Testament. I don't want to mess with the Old Testament. Sidney understood the New Testament came from the Old, so you've got to harmonize them. And that was his thinking, and so he broke with Campbell, did his own religion in Kirtland. And so when the Smiths needed somebody to write the book, but they had no money, they had to offer some kind of incentive for Sidney to write the book. Having a larger audience to preach to was that incentive. Being allowed to do his planned book revision of the Bible was also his incentive, etc. And so that's how Sidney got put into the situation to help out. So I think that is it for the news. I talked about the plasma, first patient case with plasma. So yeah, don't give credibility to this as if we've got a cure now. 2 years at least, still far away. But again, what does Nelson know, and when did he first know it? What he knows and when did he first know it is coming eventually. It's already 5 o'clock. I hope I may not be able to get to it today. Maybe that'll be my Sunday lesson for you. Okay. Yeah, I was telling in an earlier video, probably the midnight one, when I was talking about the Confederate flag, about them being hunters and lying in wait, and that's what they're doing with me with this. Now Judge First just leaves me to die with my lawsuit against the church. It was the turkey hunt, and I saw it the other day. So there it is. Alrighty. So I understand, I don't hate Mormons, because I'm hoping you're like me, deceived from birth. So please understand that.